Hello and welcome to Culture Shark, a live stream about all things pop culture. I'm Final Monkey,
And I'm Caleb.
and today we are starting our first book club of 2025. Super excited about this one. I don't know how excited Caleb is. We'll get there. Uh, but we are looking at Fantastic Four. We figured that we would take a look at what many consider to be a classic run by Mark Waid. And what is Ringo's first name? Mike, Micro Ringo, the late great Micro Ringo, a great artist. Um, and we are not going to review the entire run. We're going to review the first half. So today will be part one of the first half, if that
so
makes sense.
so go ahead and just get into that. What is the reasoning kind of behind that?
The reasoning behind.
Like whenever we review Scott Snyder's Batman, we're doing the whole thing.
Oh, okay. So the reason we're not reviewing all of it, um, this story, the we'll kind of talk about the first part, not super exciting, kind of some just typical FF stories. There's a couple little key parts I want to point out today when we get to them. But next time we meet about these in 2 weeks, it's really going to take off. And during the story, Mark Waid and Ringo get fired from the book, and it's at a really weird spot where they get fired, and then they get rehired to finish the story. So they finish the story, and we kind of hit like a point that's like the perfect stopping point, and then it continues, and then I think the rest is not as good as the first part. So I don't know if Wade, him getting fired, screwed up plans, and he, stopped. They said, "Oh no, you got to do more," and then they had to come up with more stories, or what. I don't know all the details. Um, but so we're gonna stop at the perfect stopping point. Uh, yeah,
Okay.
the rest of the stories are not bad. There's a story where like Johnny Storm um becomes the Herald of Galactus, and goofy stuff like that. So, but I wanted to focus mostly on the Doom story, and to get there though, we gotta get through this first little part. So,
So so I the Doom story I do think I'm familiar with. Um because uh Maximilian, dude.
mhm.
Uh, the way I first heard about him oh so long ago, whenever Marvel vs. Capcom 3 first came out back in 2011, he really got his start doing a show called Assist Me.
Okay,
Um, and it was. Uh, it was a dramatized version of like a tutorial. So like he would have Doctor Doom show up, and then he would do a tutorial on how to play Doctor Doom in Marvel 3, and then Wesker, Doctor Doom and Wesker were kind of like his main characters that were a part of the show, and so they were the first two episodes. And there was there instead of a final fight in the Wesker episode, Doctor Doom was kind of the hero, and Wesker was the bad guy. Instead of a final fight, they actually ended up doing an epic rap battle of history.
okay,
They called it Epic Rap Battle of MVC3,
gotcha.
and there was a line in it that I I didn't know about it at the time, so I eventually ended up looking up, and I'm like, and now I'm realizing, oh wait, that's this run.
Okay,
Uh, where one of the lines is uh uh you come at Doom says you come at me, I come harder. I turned my I killed my ex-girlfriend, turned her into a suit of armor.
There you go.
Yeah, so uh,
Is that
I,
all you know about this run, or do you know more?
that is all I know.
Okay, cool, good. Yeah, that's fine. That's good. So yeah, uh, we're gonna start with just some. I'm gonna say mundane. That's not to say these are bad stories, but these are just kind of like typical little FF adventures. And
I think they're kind of like no, you know what? We'll get to that. Go ahead, go ahead. We'll get started.
we also though we have Valeria in the cast. Valeria's Franklin, not Franklin. Good, that was good. Sound awful. Reed and Sue's daughter, Franklin's sister. Do you know much about Valeria?
I barely know anything about Franklin, actually.
Okay, well, Franklin is, Reed and Sue's son. He is a mutant and basically he's basically the most powerful mutant in of all time. He can warp reality and all kinds of crazy stuff. But often he will, different writers will deal with him by saying, "Oh, he used his powers to turn off his powers." And so he no longer has powers. And then all of a sudden another writer will come along and say, "Oh, wait, his powers are back." So it kind of changes depending on which writer is writing it currently. Hickman did some really fun stuff with Franklin, of course,
Hmm.
So, but Valeria, during the John Byrne run, Sue was pregnant with the second child, and Marvel editorials said that Sue had to have a miscarriage. John Byrne refused to do the issue. There was a big fight. So, like during the John Byrne run, there's just one issue right in the middle that he didn't write where Sue loses the baby. And I think that like Reed was trying to, if I recall, Reed was trying to get to the hospital, and Doc Ock or somebody was fighting him, and he didn't get there, in time. And so she lost the baby. I can't remember. I want to say it had something to do with the negative zone, like the rays affected Sue, and that's why she lost the baby. It was something like that. So during Chris Claremont's Fantastic Four run, yes, there is a Chris Claremont Fantastic Four run. He brought back Valeria, saying that, and a lot of writers have kind of retconned this. So I'm just gonna kind of give like the basis of what it is. That Franklin used his powers to protect the baby when Sue lost the baby, and like shunted the baby to a different universe. And in this universe, I think Doom is the leader of the Fantastic Four and raises Valeria. And like teenage Valeria shows up and helps the Fantastic Four, blah blah blah. And then at the end of the story, she gets turned back into a baby, and well, not a baby, but they kind of reset things. Sue's pregnant with Valeria again at the end of the story, and something happens. Reed can't be there to save the baby, so Doom has to help deliver the baby. And Doom says that they have to name the daughter what he wants, and that so Valeria is Doom's goddaughter. So you'll see this come up a lot where Valeria and Doom have a special connection. Sometimes when they're in a real jam, Valeria will call Doom and say help, and Doom will do it because it's Valeria, but no one else. He doesn't like anybody else to fit it for, just Valeria. So she's also, you won't see it too much in the story because she's a baby, but she's extremely, extremely smart, like up there with Reed levels. She doesn't really, I don't think she has any powers, but she's just super, super smart.
Okay.
So, but you'll see a lot more of that in the Hickman run. How smart she is, and her and Doom's relationship and all that. So yeah, this was their lost baby that's now back, and she has a
So
connection with Doom.
so she came back in this run basically, or
I think this is like she's back now. This is like right after she has been back, and they've had the baby again, and now she's a toddler in this story.
okay.
Yeah. So just in case people are wondering, where does Baby come from? Who's Valeria? You know, because everybody hears about Franklin, but this is the other kid. So
It is. Is this a Wiccan Speed situation where one is obviously more interesting than the other?
no, I mean I think they're both super interesting.
Okay.
Maybe not in this story because she's a toddler, but like Hickman does a lot of fun stuff with Valeria. So and Franklin is extremely powerful. Um, yeah, but a lot more of that will come up during the Hickman run. He does a lot of fun stuff with them. So, but let's talk about this run. The first story is about a PR firm that is hired by Reed.
And you want to know what's funny?
What?
This is the one that I have the most to say about.
Yeah, I think this one's pretty good. And so they send a guy. I can't remember the guy's name, but he is there to follow the Fantastic Four around and figure out how to sell the Fantastic Four to a modern day audience, basically.
Okay.
Schertzer is his name.
Yeah. So, do you kind of have an idea of why this is the one that I have the most to say about?
Because you feel like you're Schertzer.
No, well, I'm not Schertzer. I think the Fantastic Four need a real life Schertzer.
Hmm.
Because the Fantastic Four are a very okay, so Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, in superheroes, we're super deep, and well, not just the MCU, but superhero movies in general. We're super deep into like we have everything. We've gotten by just fine without the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four, honestly, are kind of like uh, in real life, it feels like they're old news. You know what I mean?
They do feel like this is your mom and dad's superhero team or your grandpa's super team. Like this was, oh yeah, this was cool back in the '60s. It's not something that we're into X-Men and Iron Man now and everything. This is not the one comic everybody talks about all the time. This is not
Yeah.
the hip comic.
And so I sort of feel like and I'm sure back when Wade wrote this issue, it was being meta at the time, but I think this is very topical even now.
Sure, I think Fantastic Four is one of those books that most writers don't know how to, or Marvel itself doesn't know how to sell. And every once in a while you'll get a great run, and I think we have a great run going right now of Ryan North. But yeah, it is. It's how do you do something new with this comic book that's been around for what 70 years almost? We're getting there.
Yeah. And
And yeah, go ahead.
so what I mean with this is for this I definitely think that they will have to do some sort of adaptation of this story in the future for the MCU because from what we can tell, and bear in mind, let's be honest, we don't know anything about this movie. Like we've had like maybe two pieces of key art, and that's it. You know.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
officially released. I've heard rumors, but yeah, from
yeah.
what's officially released, we know nothing.
Um, we can kind of gather that it's kind of it may be an alternate universe that is kind of retrofuturism, where retrofuturism is kind of like that Tomorrowland the City of Tomorrow uh, type uh, type future with like flying cars and very much like the Jetsons, that retrofuturism. And so let's speculate even more and say that the movie ends with them losing. Galactus devours their world, and they are taken over into the Prime MCU universe. At that point, it is the perfect time for them to kind of like figure out how to live in the modern world. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, it'd be
uh,
kind of the Captain America fish out of water type thing.
right? Exactly. A little bit better because if I'm being honest, I don't think we ever really got that with Captain America in the MCU.
Very little. He would joke about movie references and stuff, but he was thrown into action right away. And there were little things, but they didn't really do that story. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So I think second steps, we'll call it for now. Um, Now, of course, this all hinges on the fact that this first movie is actually good, which who knows about that as well. Um, the second steps, I think it's gonna be kind of this, you know?
I would assume so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why this is the one that stuck out out of any story, any issue. This is the one that stuck out to me the most, just because um, I'm like, this is we're trying to figure out how to sell the Fantastic Four to a modern audience,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Uh,
we still haven't figured it out.
uh, the thing that stuck out with me, I first read this story well over 10 years ago, probably almost 15 years ago. And the thing that sticks out to me is there's a panel or a part towards the end where the whole story they're all like, why is Reed hiring a PR person? What's the big deal? And none of the team can quite figure it out. And at the end, Reed tells Valeria the truth about why he hired a PR person. And we always portray Reed as, the perfect genius. He can solve anything. He's the smartest guy in the room. And at the end, he reveals, I'm an idiot. I'm this arrogant man who made this horrible mistake and doomed my three friends to this life. They didn't choose this life, and they could have been lab rats. They could have been locked up in a military facility for the rest of their lives. But I made a choice. I made them superheroes. I made them public superheroes that the world would celebrate. And I'm hoping one day they'll forgive me for that.
So
And
go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, that has always stuck out to me, that conversation. Um, and I always found it really interesting. Go ahead.
So let me ask you this, because I didn't do any sort of background reading on this. I just, Marvel Unlimited. I read this,
Hmm.
Um, so uh, obviously, I've talked about this the past couple weeks. I've kind of been I've been obsessed with the Maker recently. Just
Hmm.
because like that. Where is this? Like, when is this in comparison to when Ultimate Fantastic Four is being written?
Yeah, that's a good question. When does this Wade run? Wade, Ringo, run, time. Da, 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 da. I am not sure. Hold on.
The reason I ask while you're looking that up is because there is no way Ultimate Reed would have said this.
No, I think this is before. like I think Ultimate Phase 4 may. I feel like this was before Ultimate Phase 4 even came out.
Okay. Was Ultimate Fantastic Four was that the second Ultimate book, or
no? Ultimate X-Men, and then the Ultimates.
so it was the last one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I always had Ultimate Fantastic Four. Which, by the way, the more and more that I get into reading up on the Maker and Ultimate Fantastic Four, I start to realize that my exposure to the Fantastic Four in comics, whenever I was a child, was Ultimate Fantastic Four.
Yeah, 2002. This is way back before
Oh,
the Ultimates had just
that's 2 years.
started.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
2 years. 2 years before Ultimate Fantastic Four. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So this is before, and Ultimate Phase 4 when it started, they were not planning on Ultimate Reed becoming the Maker. That was just kind of a happy accident that happened along the way. I think because of Jeff Loeb destroying everything, it just kind of happened. So, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so
Cool.
this that was 20 years ago then when I read this story originally. Yeah. I knew it
Okay.
was a long time ago. I just couldn't remember how far back. Yeah, so this was way back.
Okay. Gotcha. That is definitely super. I mean, that's. I guess that's how you know that the it definitely is a happy accident, definitely. But like also uh, Hickman. Well, was it Hickman that turned him into the Maker, or was that Bendis?
That's another good question. I'm not 100% sure.
It was both of them. I just read on that it was both of them.
Okay.
So I mean, like that'll, and I'll be honest, I'm gonna give more credit to Hickman, but I mean that shows how good a writers they are. Is they can view something like this, something that 616 Reed has said, and they're like, oh. Well, our Reed would have never said this.
Right.
Maybe he's not a hero.
Right. Yeah. Well, and there's another example of Ultimate Phase 4 where they didn't know what to do with the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
They got Ultimates right. They got Ultimate Spider, Ultimate X-Men is hit or miss for me. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes
I think it's definitely more miss.
Yeah. So so they were batting about 60%, 70% with these things, and I think Ultimate Phase 4 was a miss until the Makers. Well, I think the Marvel Zombie stuff was good, and then I think the Maker stuff.
And the reason the Marvel Zombie stuff is so good is because if I'm being honest, that's probably the beginnings of the Maker, because the first time another universe reaches out to him, it's that.
Yeah. It's a Reed that tricks him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's ready to help people, and then I mean, like, it's Marvel Zombies.
Yeah. Yeah, if you've never read that crossover story in Ultimate 4, it's great because you're like, oh, he's talking to Reed from 616, and then you're like, oh no, he's not. Oh no.
Yeah, I've read that story arc recently and went into a little bit of Marvel Zombies. I got to be honest. I think that the idea of Marvel Zombies is so much less interesting whenever you don't introduce it like that.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm like, okay, you're doing this Marvel Zombies cartoon for Disney Plus, cool. Is it just gonna be boring Walking Dead or anything, or like we gonna like, what's gonna happen here?
Yeah. I have a lot to say about Marvel Zombies, but this is probably not the.
It's not. It's not
for that conversation.
We're talking more about Ultimate than we are about Wade's Run.
Yeah. So I think my favorite parts of this first part is this first story and the Doom story at the end. So we'll briefly talk about the other. Okay, so yeah, here's the panel where he is talking about, he turned his friends into celebrities,
Mm-hmm.
because he took their normal lives away, and he wants to be forgiven someday. And I think that speaks volumes to Reed's character. It was a great character moment.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the maker would never, ever, ever have one of these moments. And I think that's cool. That you can see that difference. So, um, the other stories, a lot of this is about them trying to make Johnny Storm more mature, and so they give him more responsibilities in the company. And did you realize that the Fantastic Four is it's like a major business? Like they have all these people working for them and stuff.
I always got that feeling. I've never read anything that explicitly said it, but like you can kind of get that feeling like in the games and in the movies because they have employees.
Yeah.
So like I I always assumed more. I guess so. Clarify this for me: is the Fantastic Four the brand, or do they work for like the Baxter Corporation?
I think they're the brand.
Okay.
Um, yeah, they like he licenses like in Marvel Comics, there is Marvel Comics inside Marvel Comics. Well, like there's comics being published about Fantastic Four and stuff in this universe, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. And so that's part of how they make their money is they license the rights to the Marvel comics within the universe. And I think like you'll see that in other titles as well. Like I think Captain America, Steve Rogers was an artist at Marvel Comics for a while during his run. Like there's little, weird meta things like that throughout the
Would
different
it
comics.
the best representation would you say is maybe in Logan whenever the kids are reading the X-Men comic books?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Or like in the Into the Spider-Verse movie where, you know, uh Miles Morales has comics of Spider-Man, you know.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So, there is a story in here where Reed has basically an iPad where he's storing all his equations and stuff and ideas, and it comes to life in this. Basically, it's a living math equation. They call it something else. It's not actually a equation, but it's trying to find its equal expression. That's what they said. I had to get my math terms right in my head. Um, it is trying to finish the math problem, which would be Reed, and it's like trying to erase Fantasy Four. There's some crazy body horror where Sue loses her arm, which is kind of wild. And
Yeah, this is where I I think I'm starting to kind of understand because I actually really did enjoy what we read here.
uh-huh.
I am starting to understand what I like about the Fantastic Four and what I don't like about the Fantastic Four. I'm starting to be able to verbalize it.
Hmm.
Um, and the thing is the things that I don't like about the Fantastic Four, I think is also like the point of the Fantastic Four. Because it's the weird like Star Trek science fictiony stuff or like the Doctor Who
Hmm.
adventures. Um, I am starting to see where Legends of Tomorrow got everything from.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and so uh, I'm starting to see, but and the thing is, that's I guess like that's not my bag. Uh,
So historically, you have said you don't like Star Trek Next Generation,
yes.
and I'm a huge fan of it. So I think yes, we're going to have this issue with the Fantastic Four where it's a lot of fun science adventures, and
Hmm.
that may not be your thing.
Yeah. Now, that's the things the Fantastic Four I think is very they're very versatile in that way because like not all Fantastic Four is like this.
Mhm.
Because I do quite enjoy Ultimate. Um, I enjoy Ultimate more so because I know where it's going as well. So I'll put a little notch there. But I like the Galactus trilogy. I like a lot of the stuff like in the crossovers with Cosmic, um, and the stories that involve Doctor Doom are like super. Like I really enjoy those. I guess it's the wacky adventures is where they lose me, I guess.
Yeah, so I wonder, and we may try this later in the year, having you read some of the Ryan North stuff, because it's like all wacky science adventures, but
Yeah.
smart. And so I'm curious to see how you would react to those. Um, so yeah, they fight this math equation, and then the other story is about their yeah.
Wacky stuff. So they fight this math equation.
There's your quote. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's the other story is about their costumes are made of unstable molecules, and the question is why have they never turned this into like a billion-dollar industry? And we kind of see what happens when they're trying to license it so that police officers and firefighters can use this technology, and what happens if you start, messing with the formula and stuff, and it turns disastrous. So, and it's all about Johnny Storm being the responsible one and maturing and growing up and stuff. So here's what's going to be weird. Um, so you have this story going on here about them and some money issues and stuff. I mentioned earlier that Wade and Ringo had gotten fired because they were bringing in another writer to write Fantastic Four, and so they compromised and said, okay, well, because the fans threw a fit, they said, okay, Wade and Ringo can finish their Fantastic Four run, and we'll let the other guy do Marvel Knights Fantastic Four.
Who is
And the
the other guy?
storyline, I'm going to look it up right now. I can't think of his name. Uh, Aguirre Sacasa, I think is his name.
I was Mark Wade not a big name at the time because I feel like Mark Wade is
Mark Wade was
everywhere.
a huge name, but Mark Wade is also can be problematic. People don't like him. So like that work with him. So I think maybe he rubs some people the wrong way. Roberto Aguirre Sacasa was the one who did Marvel Knights 4. And in that storyline, it's about the Fantastic Four losing all their money. So you have both these books come out at the same time, one where like they have money and one where they don't. And so I liked Marvel Knights 4. It's not terrible. Um but it's nowhere as good as what was going on in the Mark Wade book. So anyhow, let's get to the final story. It's gonna be a little bit of a shorter episode today because like you said, we don't have a whole lot to say about these because I think all the interesting stuff is in the next issues.
There's some interesting stuff that happens in this. See the first issue I really like because I like the meta-ness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Middle issues, we're getting into the wacky stuff, and then we got ourselves a Doctor Doom prologue, and I'm like, okay, I'm on board again.
Yeah, because we're about to go in one of the crazier Doctor Doom stories here. We see Doom as we don't usually see him. He's not wearing any of his armor. He has like a suit on. He just has like a leather mask, and
He kind of looks like Destro.
yeah, a little bit. And he is in America going around to different psychics and fortune tellers and he's trying to track down his long lost love. And let me see, what is her? Do you know her name off the top of your head? I'm flipping through the book in front of me. Hold on.
I don't.
Oh, you know what? It's not in this book. That's right. This issue's not in there. Anyhow, uh, at the end, he tracks her down, and we kind of get their backstory that, you know, uh, after Doom's mom died, he was like heartbroken in Latveria, and when he was like a young teenager, he met this girl. They fell in love, and the basically the military noticed him and offered him I guess like a scholarship or a program to leave, and she told him not to leave, but he chose, to go to America rather than stay with her. They broke up, and so now he's found her again. He's like, I'm willing to give up everything so we can be together again. And she's kind of horrified by what he's become, but then he unmasks in front of her, and that's kind of like, he doesn't do that to anybody. He never unmasks. um, and so she agrees to give us another chance, and then you realize, oh no, this was a trap. He has made a deal with I guess they say demons. I can't remember what it said. And what the deal is he has to sacrifice the thing he loves most in the world to get ultimate power. And so he tracked her down but she had to be willing to be,
No, yeah, no, it says her name. Um, at least is this Valeria?
maybe it is Valeria. I was thinking it was Valeria, but I wasn't sure if it was Valeria, and that would make sense. That's why he named the daughter Valeria. See, it all comes back around. Yeah.
Because that's because that confused me. Because I'm like, is this Valeria Richards?
No, it's not Valeria Richards. Do you know what the deal is with the explosion that happened in college and all that with Doom? What he was trying to do during the explosion?
No.
He was building a machine to contact his mom's soul in hell and talk to her, and that's one of his things is his mom was a sorceress, and he was always trying to get her back. And there's a famous Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom storyline about it that I've never read, so maybe we could read that at some point. Um, but yeah, Reed noticed a miscalculation. He told him, "Hey, this is wrong," and Doom wouldn't listen. The machine exploded. Then he said, "Oh, Reed must have tampered with it because Doom can never be wrong." And but yeah, here's the panel where the curse basically destroys her, and then he's getting the leather armor, the magical armor through this. So this is the beginning of the unthinkable story, and
I have a question.
uh-huh.
Is this the unthinkable, or like, is there more to it?
Ooh, we're going some dark places.
Okay.
We're gonna see. I will tell you this: we are gonna see Reed at Reed can fix anything, but Reed don't do magic. So Reed doesn't know how to do handle magic, a magical opponent. So Doom is coming at them pure magic this time, and Reed doesn't know what to do.
Which that I can get on board with as well, because I've always found or at least I can see that being interesting, because I'm very curious how I'm going to react to this storyline, because historically, I'm a big Iron Man fan who doesn't like the Mandarin. Which I know, hot take, but like, magic versus technology in general doesn't do anything for me, and that's the whole idea, is that Mandarin versus Iron Man is magic versus technology, but usually magic is the good guy and technology is the bad guy, but it's like the reverse. That's the whole point of Tony Stark and the Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
But in this way, I'm intrigued because you've got the smartest man in the world who has no idea about magic. So it's less about magic versus technology and more about the smartest man in the world coming to terms with something that he has no idea about.
And they touch on this some in the Ryan North run, where like they were dealing with ghosts in one of the stories, and Reed's like, "Well, ghosts aren't real," and they look at him like, we hang out with Ghost Rider all the time. What are you talking about? You know, like we've seen all this stuff, and he's still like that logical part of his brain still will not accept that there's the supernatural stuff. You know,
Uh,
so
in Justice League Dark, Batman kind of has that going on.
yeah, yeah. It's it's an interesting. It's always like they touch on this some in the 2099 comics. Like how does religion work in the Marvel universe when you've got like Norse gods walking around and stuff, and other stuff. It really throws things on its head. Like in the 2099
Oh,
comic books, there's a Church of Thor where they worship Thor and stuff. So
oh man, Kevin Smith's run on Green Arrow is so interesting because Quiver is the first story arc,
mm,
and it's about Oliver Queen coming back to life. Uh, he's in heaven. He meets the Christian God,
mm.
and Barry is there.
Yeah,
um,
I think I've read that. It's been a long time, but yes, I
yeah,
remember
it,
that
it, it
story.
it's really good. Um, but then there's also like, wait a second, in Rebirth, Barry was never dead. He was just one with the Speed Force, and
Yeah,
uh,
and then in Marvel Comics, Barry was over there as buried alien. Um, if you never read, I think it's Quasar where they find Barry Allen in the Marvel universe in
oh,
his
really?
amnesia. Yeah, and he goes, "Yeah, my name's Barry the Alien," because he can't remember Barry Allen. So he gets a different name though.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's a whole you know they can't officially say it's Barry Allen, but it's
yeah.
obviously Barry Allen. So um, yeah, you'll find a lot of comics that conflict with each other, especially if different writers are writing things. Like I think there was a lot of stories about Mockingbird being dead, like like
Yes.
people meeting her ghosts in the afterlife and stuff, and then you find out like during Secret Invasion, oh no, she wasn't dead, and you're like, wait, we've seen her ghost and stuff, or like Myra McTaggart. There's been stuff about her being dead, and then it's like, no, that wasn't her.
Well, and then it turns out that whenever she dies, something else happens.
Right, right. So you're like, wait, and that that's a whole nother conversation because I think of like alternate realities where Myra gets killed and stuff. And you're like, wait, so what happened in that reality when she died? So anyhow, we're way off course. Um, in 2 weeks, we'll be continuing the story. Uh, like I said, these stories are pretty good, but they're just kind of typical Fantastic Four until you get to that last part there with Doom, and then it's about to take off. We're gonna get to what I think is one of the better Doom stories, which is saying something because almost all Doom stories are great. So really excited, and then I'm curious because we'll go into Unthinkable, and then Authoritative Action, and then I think Hereafter is the final part that we'll do in part 3. I'm really curious to see what you think about Hereafter. But we'll get there. It's gonna be a fun little journey through what I think
Okay.
is a great Fantastic Four run. What is on the agenda for next week?
So next week we're gonna do our first watch party, where you have sent a list of, what was it, IMDb's list, or what list was it?
I can't remember if it was top 100 movies or top 100 movies everyone should see, or it was something like that.
Um, but we went through, we picked off some movies that we found interesting, that maybe one or neither of us have seen, and so I if I'm being honest, none of none of them are great like starters. Especially the one that I don't know how we're gonna fit the dictator one in there.
It's
But
fantastic. It's so good.
yeah,
We're talking about the
uh,
Charlie Chaplin film. I think it's called The Great Dictator.
yes. So we're gonna try to do. We got to try to sell Culture Shark to a modern audience. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and so we're not going to start with that one. I've seen this one. It's one of my favorite films. Next week we are going to be watching, or we're going to watch it this week and then discuss it next week. Quentin Tarantino's first directorial debut, Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, so I've kind of stayed away from this one, so it'll be interesting because I know it's a lot of I've seen this parodied quite a bit, and I know there's a scene with a guy taped to a chair being tortured or something.
You don't
So
really see anything though.
yeah, so it'll be interesting. I've seen a couple of Tarantino films. I've seen the Kill Bill movies and Inglourious Bastards, but I think that's all I've seen.
I think those two are probably that those two plus Django are probably the two most commercial films. Everything else is kind of like Reservoir Dogs is a really underground film.
Hmm.
But it is one of my favorites. I prefer it whenever Tarantino goes, more underground. I'm a big fan of Tarantino, so uh, yeah, like I said, out of all the ones that we came up with, um, I feel like this is just the best one to start with.
Okay, cool. So we will be discussing that next week, and then the week after that, more Fantastic Four. But until then, I've been Final Monkey.
And I'm Caleb.
We'll catch you next time in the Shark Pond.
See ya.